Hello and welcome to today's webinar with an update on TX-RAMP and StateRAMP. We are so excited that you are able to join us today as we have a great group ready to present for you and talk about some of the recent updates to the StateRAMP program and to the TX-RAMP program and how they work together. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in with introductions. My name is Leah McGrath, and I have the privilege and pleasure of serving as Executive Director of StateRAMP. And I'm joined today by Matthew Kelly, who is the Deputy CISO at the state of Texas. Thank you so much, Matt, for joining us. He has been around the state of Texas for a while, I think, doing about every job role position one can do for DIR. And when Texas passed a law requiring the establishment of TX-RAMP, Matt Kelly had the privilege and I think probably pleasure and pain of establishing the program. And so we're just so grateful for his time today. Matt also serves on as a member of the StateRAMP Standards and Technical Committee. We also have Jessica Kasheri. She is one of our most recent team members to join our StateRAMP team as a Government Engagement Director. Jessica has some fantastic experience in higher ed and state and local government. In addition to being an attorney, she's done quite a bit of work in procurement and has a real passion for how we bridge cybersecurity in procurement as well. So really grateful to have her with us today. Couple of notes: we are recording this presentation and we will be sharing this with you and with everyone on our website following today's recording. We will also be welcoming and encouraging you to post any questions that you might have in the chat feature there using the Q&A, and we'll be working to address those questions as we go. I will get things started by inviting Jessica to tell us before we begin, right, to give us a baseline understanding before we dig into the programs and how StateRAMP and TX-RAMP can work together for you. There are a few differences in terminology that are probably pretty important to understand. So Jessica, could you walk us through those key terms of note?
Absolutely, Leah, thank you. So there are some key terms that we want to make sure we highlight right at the start, just so that we all have the same level understanding of what we're dealing with here. Provisional status. So this is a key term that has a very different meaning between StateRAMP and TX-RAMP. Provisional status as it pertains to TX-RAMP, I'm sure you all are familiar with. It's that provisional product certification that permits an agency to contract for the use of a product for a set period of time, in this case, 18 months before they receive TX-RAMP certification. The thing we're going to be talking about most today that I think is wonderful news is that if you work with StateRAMP, that 18-month expiration is not going to apply. We will talk more about that though. With StateRAMP, provisional status is quite different. It is something we assign if a provider meets all of the requirements of our authorized status, but they leverage a cloud solution that has yet to achieve StateRAMP authorization. And there are some key requirements that they have to meet in order to achieve that provisional status. So that is a big difference we want to highlight right off the bat. The other key term that we want to bring your attention to is impact levels and public control baselines. So these are things that sound different, but are actually substantially similar. With TX-RAMP, you'll hear the terms level 1 and level 2. And with StateRAMP, you're going to hear the terms low, moderate, and high. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the definitions of those impact levels or public control baselines are the same. And you can see here what those mean on a specific basis. Obviously, level 1 and low are going to be your lowest non-confidential information systems that are not going to have a big impact if there were a breach or an issue, versus high, where we're talking about federal critical infrastructure, national security information, things we really need to be extremely aware of and very secure. So I think that covers those key terms, and I hope that that makes some sense as we go further into this presentation.
Well, and I like if you could go back to the key terms real quickly. I think one of the things that what I like about starting here is this starts to get into a little bit of the why TX-RAMP was started, why StateRAMP matters, is because we're talking about how do we protect the confidential data, the systems, the integrity of government. And the impact levels or public controls baselines is really a good starting point for when you think about what do I need to do to make sure I'm meeting these requirements. And I know StateRAMP has a data classification tool that can help providers or government agencies even. It's just a questionnaire that our Standards and Technical Committee has developed, a questionnaire to help point you to what impact level or what public controls baseline might you need. And Matt, I know you have that question from time to time from providers as well.
Yes, so within Texas, the responsibility for determining what the minimum certification level is for a given cloud service is with the actual customer agency or the agency that is contracting for that service. So it's possible that you could have multiple customers within Texas. You have a university, a state agency, and they actually require two different levels of certification for the same product that you are offering to them. So in those sorts of cases, the decision is on the cloud service provider to what level they ultimately seek, but a cloud service provider should consult with their customer agencies within Texas in determining what level is appropriate for them. So it's really on a use case or a case by case kind of basis what that determination is. Typically, you're going to see it kind of converge on the same level. But again, cloud service providers should definitely consult their Texas customers to make those determinations in helping weed out what level you should ultimately seek to maximize your returns on security investment.
Absolutely. And I think that the level that we see most commonly used is that moderate impact level. I'm sure you're seeing the same thing. So as if you are in a position where you're not sure, or you have been pulled in two different directions, no one will complain if you go to the higher impact level or the higher certification is what we've seen. But I know Matt's team as well as our team is always helpful here to help have that conversation if you have questions.
That's a wonderful point, Leah, and I'm so glad you brought that up. Thank you so much, Matt, for giving us that valuable information on how they can make those selections. And moving forward, I think we probably want to jump right into how does StateRAMP satisfy TX-RAMP? That's what I know you all are here to learn today, and I hope that by the end of this, you will feel you successfully know how to do that. So there are three different paths that we're exploring. The first being the StateRAMP Progressing Security Snapshot program, and that will help you achieve TX-RAMP Provisional. StateRAMP Ready, which will also help you achieve that TX-RAMP Provisional, and then StateRAMP Authorized, which is going to qualify you for the TX-RAMP Level 1 or Level 2 authorization, depending on, as we just talked about, how you are using that data and classifying that data. The key thing to note, and we mentioned this earlier, is that with the snapshot progressing, the StateRAMP Progressing Security Snapshot Program or StateRAMP Ready, you no longer have to be confined by that 18-month limitation on TX-RAMP provisional status. This is exceptionally helpful for those of you that find yourself in a predicament where your expiration date is rapidly approaching, you've already gotten that TX-RAMP provisional status, and now you don't know what to do because you know you're not going to meet the 18-month deadline. If you go ahead and you work with us here at StateRAMP to enroll your product in the Progressing Security Snapshot Program, you now will remove that 18-month expiration date and find that you are able to continue on your journey through that TX-RAMP process. Given that, I think that there probably are some questions about why that might be the case, why that might work. Leah, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, yeah, and I'll invite Matt here to comment too. I think one of the things that has been exciting for our organizations working together is there's a lot of synergy in our mission. Right? When you think about StateRAMP's mission and what TX-RAMP is trying to really achieve is to be able to see more cyber maturity across the providers and the products that are leveraged in the public space. And so I think that's why you see the Progressing Snapshot program satisfying that provisional status without that expiration. But Matt, maybe you can speak more clearly to that.
Yeah, so personally, I'm all about transparency. I'm all about moving the needle. I'm trying to move things in the right direction. I obviously have to enforce rules and ensure that we're meeting things within the timelines that are prescribed for them. But we also acknowledge and understand that moving through a authorization program such as StateRAMP or FedRAMP, that does not always confine to nice little timelines. And so what I'm really focused on here in terms of if a provider is leveraging an external ramp, external to Texas, that is, such as StateRAMP, we want to ensure that they're not being penalized for that, because it saves resources across multiple states. If you go to the centralized type program, the due diligence, the third-party assessment, et cetera, all of that is great assurances that we like to look to and say, hey, this provider's done their due diligence. They're trying to demonstrate that they're moving in the right direction. They're being upfront about it. I don't want to penalize folks just because their timeline, their journey doesn't fit within that 18-month period. However, I do want to ensure that they are on the right track and they are moving in the right direction. So for those reasons, we've decided to accept the progressing snapshot in lieu of our provisional timeline, so to speak. So provided you maintain an active current status in good standing, so to speak, with StateRAMP for these statuses that indicate, other than authorization, we will continue to reflect your TX-RAMP provisional certification, which enables agencies and universities to enter or renew contracts for the service, provided that you maintain that standing. And then ultimately, once the provider does achieve authorization, which is kind of our end goal at this point in time, then we'll flip that switch and we'll grant the full TX-RAMP level 1 or 2 certification, depending on that impact level of authorization that's achieved. So really what we're doing here is we're breaking down that explicit timeline that's really in place to ensure that providers aren't spinning their wheels and just checking a box to enter into a contract, but we're really seeing them progress and move in the right direction. And we don't want to penalize, we want to incentivize folks to go through that process and be upfront and transparent about it. So StateRAMP provides us with a weekly report of those entities and services that are enrolled in that program, and we reflect it in our records going forward. So it's another really good reason to focus on potentially StateRAMP and Avenue for me. If I'm doing business in multiple states, this is one less that we have to worry about if we just continue on this track going forward and continually assessing ourselves and improving ourselves.
Absolutely. And you alluded to it a little bit, Matt, but maybe, what do you see as the benefits from your perspective for providers participating with StateRAMP?
So the one that comes to mind is, a single program to navigate, to go through. At least in Texas, we've decided that, we don't want to duplicate efforts more than we have to. In working with Leah and the StateRAMP crew, we've really understood what is being assessed, what's being evaluated, and the assurances that are obtained through going through StateRAMP. And we've deemed that necessary or sufficient for our purposes to cover TX-RAMP. So where at all possible, I don't like to duplicate efforts, and that's why we lean on StateRAMP, and that's why we lean on the StateRAMP Progressing Statuses and Progressing Snapshot program, as well as having a independent kind of mechanism for our kind of initial onboarding, so to speak, in the TX-RAMP Provisional. So really, I'm just trying to align as much as possible with whatever your choice is, and then let's focus on the benefits and streamlining the efficiencies by going through that program. That is to say, if you're doing business only in Texas, it still might make more sense for you only to focus on Texas. But again, I would say getting ahead of the curve, I think StateRAMP might be something to definitely explore, at least even if you're only doing business in Texas for the future.
I think you made a great point too, as well, when you mentioned that it's a streamlined process, right? So just to highlight here for everybody listening, if you're somebody who is going to use StateRAMP as your gateway to TX-RAMP status, just understand that you don't have to get in that pipeline or in that queue over with TX-RAMP. You are walking the right path by being involved with StateRAMP, whether that's through the Progressing Security Snapshot program or StateRAMP Ready, or ultimately even StateRAMP Authorized. And we'll go a little bit more into detail about that later, but I just want to make sure that you're not reinventing the wheel or taking extra steps where you don't have to. This is the goal between the partnership of TX-RAMP and StateRAMP is to make this process as seamless for you as it is for us. So I hope that you will find that to be true. With that, we're going to step forward kind of into the nitty-gritty a little bit. I'm going to try and keep this high level. Let's talk a little bit about StateRAMP's baselines. So our governance committees adopt all of our standards. Our framework is built off of NIST 853. Rev 4 is where we started and is currently still accepted. However, we have now adopted Rev 5 as well. Those templates should be forthcoming, hopefully later this year, and they will be released as soon as we have them for you to use. If you want to learn any more about our policies, templates, or resources, we did have that handy dandy link down there at the bottom, and we would encourage you to go and look and dig into that. And we also offer office hours on a weekly basis for any very technical questions you might have, and we stand ready to answer those for you. But I'm assuming that we're all here because we really want to know about Progressing Security Snapshots program and how that can help you meet the TX-RAMP requirements. You heard earlier that you can use TX-RAMP Provisional status through the TX-RAMP program, and then that can be done in a variety of ways, which includes a single StateRAMP security snapshot, but you're going to have that 18-month time limitation. We feel like the better practice, and not just for you, but for your cyber maturity as a whole and for the process in general, is that you actually enroll in our Progressing Security Snapshot program. That's going to remove that 18-month time limitation, and as we all know, time goes a lot faster than we care for it to. But it also is ensuring that you are moving the needle and that you are improving upon your cyber maturity. And it's giving you a path to get to that StateRAMP ready or StateRAMP authorized status. So ultimately, what is the StateRAMP Security Snapshot Progressing Program? It's a gap assessment and a score. It's going to be based on those NIST 853 most critical controls. And it's a really quick turnaround time, which is great because you're going to know right off the bat where you stand and can get enrolled in that TX-RAMP provisional status right away. You're also going to end up with quarterly snapshot updates and monthly consultative calls with our PMO that's going to help you walk that path towards ready or authorized. Ultimately, there are some key things that you'll want to note here, and that is that while on a standard basis, you just may provision access for governments to view this information. In this case, it would be your snapshots and your progressing notes. If you want this to qualify for TX-RAMP provisional status, should an agency or DIR request that they be provisioned access, you would need to agree to provision them access for that to qualify. Additionally, we feel like this is a really great asset to open up cyber maturity to all size businesses because we do offer our enrollment monthly subscription based on revenue. So this allows for those small businesses to still have a way to enter the playing field, just like that bigger business might. Additionally, we take the work of letting DIR know that you're involved away from you, and we put the burden on ourselves. So we take care of that on a weekly basis, making sure that DIR is aware that your product is enrolled in this process, and that you maintain on that, so long as you maintain on that program, your name will remain on that list. When we move past the progressing snapshot into our verified security statuses here at StateRAMP, you'll see that we have 3 verified security statuses. You've got that ready status, which we've talked about previously, that will also qualify for TX-RAMP Provisional. You have authorized, and that is the status that will actually translate directly into the TX-RAMP authorization, whether at a level 1 or a level 2. And then here is where we talked about that key difference earlier, provisional StateRAMP status. And in this case, the provider's product meets all of the requirements to achieve a status of authorized, but they are leveraging a cloud solution that has yet to achieve that authorized status. And so what they need to do is ensure that that cloud solution is enrolled in the Progressing Security Snapshot program. And if they do that, we're able to grant them a provisional StateRAMP status. And so again, that provisional, very different than the TX-RAMP provisional status. The key thing to note about all those statuses is that each requires continuous monitoring. It's monthly monitoring. You are going to grant, you may grant access to provider or participating governments rather to look at those artifacts and ensure that they're comfortable with what's going on behind the scenes. Again, much like that Progressing Security Snapshot program, you would need to be willing to provision access to Texas, whether that's DIR or an agency upon request, in order for this to meet, whether that's TX-RAMP Provisional through StateRAMP Ready, or whether that's a TX-RAMP certification through StateRAMP Authorized. And if you have any more questions about the continuous monitoring policies or our escalation processes, you can find those on our website. Okay, the authorized product list. This is fantastic. So the authorized product list is a list on our website where we will show every single product that is either progressing through the process to achieve a StateRAMP status, or that currently has a StateRAMP status of ready or authorized and provisional. And so the benefit to being on this list is that, again, we try to take the work out of your hands and put it onto ourselves. And so this is synced weekly to DIR so that they have all this information, and you are then not required to provide any continuous monitoring artifacts to DIR directly. You are not required to let them know you're on this list. We're doing all that for you. And again, this goes back to what I said earlier. We want to make sure that this is a one-stop shop. So don't feel that you need to be doing anything for TX-RAMP directly. If you're working through the process with StateRAMP, we are making sure that TX-RAMP knows you are doing what you need to be doing. And then we've got the StateRAMP Fast Track program. So if you are a company with a product that has a FedRAMP ready, an ATO, or a PATO status, we allow you to use that same packet of information you used for FedRAMP to work towards a StateRAMP ready or StateRAMP authorized status. So we would encourage you, if that is something you have already done all the legwork for, to look into this process. We feel that this is a great opportunity for you to move through our process quite quickly and efficiently and get where you want to go without the hassle of starting at square one.
I'm just going to chime in here because we actually also, if you have, maybe you haven't achieved yet, you're in queue perhaps, and you haven't achieved yet that FedRAMP ready ATO or PATO status. If you have completed the audit, that's the real key here. This is the real benefit. You don't have to put your FedRAMP templates in a StateRAMP template. You can submit the same 3PAO audit that you had done if you're RAR or SAR to StateRAMP. And that's the benefit of the fast track process. So even if you haven't yet, maybe you've submitted it or you've completed your audit, your RAR or your SAR, but you haven't heard back yet from your agency sponsor in the federal space, or you haven't heard back yet on that status, you can still submit that package to StateRAMP leveraging the fast track process. And that's where we're trying to do all that we can to not have you repeating work and chances are we can evaluate that package through our process, hopefully a little bit faster than other folks so that you can get on that authorized product list sooner.
That's a wonderful point, Leah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you highlighting that. And if anybody does have any questions about Fast Track and how that works, we do have that link down there at the bottom that can help. And additionally, feel free to reach out to us and we will ensure we get you whatever information that we can to clarify anything else. All right, and so with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Leah to talk about next steps.
Well, we hope that you're convinced and would like to join the mission. So joining the mission is really about being a part of StateRAMP, being a part of this ecosystem and organizations who are really driving toward standardization and a common method for verifying the cloud security of the products that are leveraged by our state and local governments and higher ed. How do we help together raise that cyber posture? And that is the mission of StateRAMP and what we're trying to achieve. We do have memberships for providers as well as governments, and you can find more on our website and reach out anytime. We also have these helpful links for you. So we'll share this. This is a lot to take in, but there are some great links here for you if you're looking for more information about StateRAMP and about TX-RAMP. These are good kind of quick hits to go take a look at. One thing I can promise you, having been doing this since 2020 now, I can promise you and commit to you that we will continue to improve. We're going to continue to iterate. And the good news, Matt, right, is we're going to continue to iterate, hopefully together, and working with TX-RAMP and the DIR team so that StateRAMP can continue to be a great, Jessica, as you said it, kind of one-stop place where you can come to be able to satisfy these requirements and to do so in a way that also allows you to satisfy these requirements for other participating governments. So we encourage your input, we encourage your questions and ideas on how we can continue to improve and be stronger together. That really kind of reaches the conclusion of our presentation, but I'd love to invite and thank Jessica and Matt for being a part of this, and invite you maybe any final comments for the good of the cause.
Yeah, thanks, Leah. I just want to iterate again that if you're a provider, you're doing business in multiple states, I highly encourage you to explore StateRAMP and whether or not that's a good fit for you. If you're doing business in Texas, then again, we're relying on StateRAMP as one of our assurances, and I think it can be an economical and proactive decision for any cloud provider that's looking to get ahead of the curve in terms of RAMP adoption and really demonstrate that they have a commitment to security and protecting their customers' data. So I want to thank you for permitting me to be here, that I can explain kind of the relationship between StateRAMP and TX-RAMP and what some of the benefits are for going StateRAMP. But if anyone has any questions about TX-RAMP in particular, we'll provide our contact information as well, so you can reach out to us. We're happy to help however we can. So thanks again for having me here today.
And I would just like to say we're real excited here at StateRAMP about this partnership with TX-RAMP, with Matt Kelly and his team. We see the value in working together to ensure that everyone is moving forward in their cyber maturity, and we really stand ready to help. So if you are a government and you are, one of the agencies in Texas and you're looking for information, please feel free to reach out to our government engagement team. If you are a provider and you've got more questions, our membership engagement team is really excited to work with you and to help you. And on that helpful link slide, as well as on the prior slide, you will see the email addresses for those, and we'll make sure to drop those in the links below too, so that you have that as well. And we just really look forward to working with all of you.